patient with yourself. So we all set our expectations very high, and most importantly, our expectations of ourselves. So give yourself a break and be patient. Things will fall into place.
That was our very own Tanya Borovtseva with some advice for our international exchange participants who are just about to begin their own programs. Tanya joined me to share a few tips and to reflect on her own exchange experience nearly 15 years ago. My name is Mark Overman, and this is Voices of InterExchange. Tanya's been an integral part of the InterExchange staff for 8 years now, helping thousands of students from around the world have life-changing experiences in the U.S. She's originally from Zaporizhia, Ukraine, and she's now made New York City her adopted hometown, and she's our external relations manager. And you might know her from her very popular Tanya's Tips series, where she provides all sorts of practical and fun advice for our exchange participants. Tanya, thanks for joining me for this very first podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So you're an exchange program veteran. You've done this a lot. So tell me about your first experiences on exchange programs.
I was a work and travel student 3 times. The first time when I came to the U.S. was back in 2004, and I was a work and travel student in Philadelphia. I worked at Wawa, which is a chain of stores,
the
very
famous
popular.
Philly chain.
Yeah. And so that was my first year, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed my experience, and I decided to come back. And my second 2 years, in 2005 and 2006, I was an exchange student with the Council on International Educational Exchange.
Why did you decide to leave? You're originally from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
You come all the way to Philadelphia, spend the summer. Why did you want to do that? What prompted you to take that kind of long trip and plunge-in type experience?
Yeah, my decision was actually, I guess the traditional way to think about it is that people think about it, plan for it, and then it's a very well-aware decision to come on this program. In my case, it was, but what sparked it was kind of like very sudden meeting with a friend of mine who was going on the program himself, and we were in our university break, and he called my name across the hall, and he was like, "Hey, Tanya," and I'm like, "Hey." He's like, "Let's go to America this summer," and I said, "Oh, sure, let's go." And then he told me the details of the program. I thought it was great. Talked to my parents, and I always wanted to come to the U.S. on the exchange program, but I kind of like didn't know which one. So I think that this sudden kind of, unexpected thing sparked that I came on this program specifically.
Had you been to the U.S. before that?
No.
This was the first time?
My first time, yeah.
What's the first thing you remember? If you think back, what's that first memory you have? My first memory is I studied English in Ukraine, so I went to English intensive school for all my schooling since I was 7 years old. I studied English at the university, and I was a straight A student. So Of course you were. Of course, yeah. So I was very confident in my ability to speak English. And we arrived at the airport, and we had to ask for directions to Philadelphia from New York. And so I approached one of the people who works at the airport. I asked how to get to Philadelphia. I hear a response, and I realized that I don't understand a single word. And I remember there was a very kind of like reality check experience. And I went back to my friends, and they were like, "So did you find out where the train station is?" And I was like, "No, I couldn't understand anything." So it took some practice and courage to, kind of get used to American accent. I have a funny thing. When I called my parents, we didn't have, in 2004, we didn't have smartphones. So we had to use regular calling cards to call our parents. So we all arrived in Philadelphia. We bought the calling cards. We used the regular payphone.
on the street.
Payphone on the street.
Yeah, to call our families.
It's another era.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, you kind of like call your parents and you're like, hi, I'm alive. I made it. And then my mom was like, so how was your first day in the U.S.? And I remember the first phrase that I said, I was like, oh my God, everything is like in the movie. I was like, people are like in the movie, the streets, the houses. I'm like, everything is like in the movie, so it's real.
What do you think you took away from your experience that has helped you throughout your life since then and has helped you in your career? Obviously, you're with us at InterExchange and you've been working in the exchange world for a long time. But what are those things you took from the experience, maybe the skills you gained that you feel like you still use in this day, or that really helped you advance in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first more like personal qualities that I uncovered in myself is belief in myself and simply confidence. I am a single child in Ukraine, so of course all attention of my family is on me. So I never had an opportunity to be alone and make decisions and be courageous. So my first year in the U.S. really kind of made me feel very free and taught me to make decisions, to be independent, to live an adult lifestyle. I made a lot of friends. I learned to communicate better, to communicate more explicitly, to communicate my thoughts in a more confident way, communicate with different age groups of people, from my friends who I traveled with and lived with, to my coworkers, managers, everybody around me, communicating with people in different languages, who speak different languages and using English as the common language amongst us. That's where it comes to ability to express yourself clearly and things like that. And yeah, I think it's definitely kind of like you have a little test of living an adult life for a short period of time.
So many of our work and travel USA students are arriving in the country already or about to arrive for their summer here in the US. They're going to be scattering all over the country. What is some advice you would give students who are arriving right now?
Don't be shy to ask your host employer for tips on the best and cost-effective ways to get to your final location, to your host community in the US. So of course everybody uses Google Maps now or other tools, and that's a great resource, but people who live in the area, they are the best source of information and they know the best routes and methods to get there and not spend a lot of money. Pack light. So very often when we travel, we think that we need everything, but the truth is everything nowadays, everything is available everywhere for purchase and not very expensive. So if you forget something, it's not the end of the world. Actually, a very interesting quote that I read recently is the author said, sometimes people who travel and have huge suitcases and they pack everything and they forget to forget anything, they take so much with them and they forget the most important thing. They forget themselves. Pack strategically for the plane too. So when you are taking a plane, it's a long plane ride. It can be very exhausting. You will be dealing with the time change. So don't be surprised when you arrive here that you are tired and focused or anything. So pack plane essentials, that's what I'm trying to say, that would help you be fresh upon arrival.
What are those plane essentials?
For me personally, it's a sleeping mask, a neck pillow. I like a hand sanitizer with lavender scent because it helps you relax and kind of fall asleep. I usually take a packet of sleep time tea and then I just ask for hot water on the plane. So pretty much my whole point is to sleep.
What advice would you give for students for when they arrive at their location? You know, the first week or two is probably very difficult for a lot of people. You're adjusting to a new place, a new country, another language, and you're starting to work your job. So for anyone, starting a new job is difficult. thinking back to your experience, what's the advice you would give to help someone in those first few weeks?
Mm-hmm. I would say be patient with yourself. So we all set our expectations very high, and most importantly, our expectations of ourselves. So give yourself a break and be patient. Things will fall into place. It's okay to not understand things. It's okay to, when things are new and you need to figure them out on the go, it's okay to be intimidated. It's okay to be shy. Kind of like be patient with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. And don't hold things in yourself.
I know after you did your work and travel experiences, you came back to the U.S. to do an internship.
So for me, my career training experience after I completed my bachelor's degree in Ukraine was a really great opportunity to sort of like narrow down eventually my professional path and interests, and even academically sort of the major for my master's degree. So I think it was a really great and meaningful program for me to do.
Would you recommend to any of those students who are doing, say, a work and travel USA program right now that they might want to consider other exchange programs in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I would say to not stop on the work and travel program. I think that the work and travel program is a great opening. It's a great door to enter the world of exchanges. And if somebody chooses the U.S. to be a country to continue these exchanges in, there are a lot more programs that are available after the work and travel. And career training is one of them.
You're someone who came to the U.S. for the first time on the Work and Travel USA program, on an exchange program. And of course, you live here now, and you've had your professional career here for a number of years. But is it hard for you to have that kind of dual culture within yourself? You're originally from Ukraine. Your, I guess, adopted country is the U.S. You feel you have elements of both cultures in you. But is that difficult, or is it more enriching for you to have two rather than just one?
Well, at this point in my life, American culture is a part of who I am. And I think that when it comes to American culture, you know, when I say that, it doesn't mean that I say that because I've been here for a while. Even when you are in the U.S. for a short term, and not just as a tourist, but kind of like coming on an exchange program like our participants do, even if when you are here for a short term, this culture does not leave you indifferent. It does have an imprint eventually on who you are. So to me, yeah, it's a part of who I am. And nowadays, it's sort of, I consist of both cultures, Ukrainian and American. And the way I see myself in the world is I can be sort of like a cultural ambassador for both of these cultures.
Right.
And even though I'm not American, when I travel, I share a lot of information about American culture. It's actually very enriching. So for a while I did have this sort of like, oh, who am I? Ukrainian, American. I always, culturally, so I always felt the need to choose, right? But nowadays I can say that having 2-3 cultures within yourself, the more the merrier, sort of. It really enriches your experience of how you experience life.